If you are anything like me, you too have been experiencing massive change right now. I wanted to come on to share just some channeled insight on what is actually freaking happening, why it's happening, and maybe what we can do about it in the meantime, because you know just as well as I do that when you're going through something really challenging, especially when you're facing a truth about yourself that maybe is becoming obvious because of other people, you start to wonder, where have you really been? And this is what I want to dive into today. So let's get it. Okay, so change, right? Super uncomfortable, especially when you are extremely aware of it. And it only really becomes super extremely aware when you are literally in the depths of maybe moving from one thing to another. And usually it's not an immediate, like, okay, I'm leaving behind this thing and now this other thing is replacing it. A lot of times there's an integration phase where you're like learning and healing and you're going through the motions of like who you used to be, and that doesn't register anymore, and you're becoming this new person, you're becoming a new person. But you aren't quite at the changed place that you know, hopefully anticipate yourself going to. And I just want to bring into light that, like, it's not always one straight shot towards that thing, obviously, right? Well, I hope we all know that. And if you are not aware of that it being a straight shot, then buckle up, Buttercup, because you're in for a roller coaster, which sometimes can be really exciting, you know? But a point of a roller coaster is you have to accept that you're on a ride and you're strapped in and you have nowhere else to go. That's a big one. Second thing, really relative to this, is when you are on that roller coaster, you really have to embrace this up, down, side, upside down, loop-de-loops at times that are going to either sometimes drastically or subtly change the way you are receiving that experience. And or maybe a real world practical example of that is, you know, if you are in the midst of a career change, sometimes you can't control if somebody doesn't align to you being at their place of work anymore. Like, for instance, if you have a boss and you're going to be fired, like, sometimes this thing comes out of nowhere, especially if your boss is not consciously, effortlessly informing you of your work ethic or the way that you've been working, or maybe something you never alluded to something being wrong, so they just pull the rug from under you, like, sorry, you are no longer a fit here. Or what's been happening a lot is layoffs due to government policies, which we won't get into too much here because that is not my wheelhouse. But what I will say is a lot of people have been losing jobs lately due to other external circumstances that are out of their control. So meaning, when we're in these changes and we didn't necessarily prepare, I just want to side note that sometimes our soul is already preparing, and you probably already felt this was coming in some soul contract idea, because maybe something internally in you is feeling uncomfortable and you're assessing and you're looking at this experience like, I kind of had a feeling. Well, you did. So anyway, when you're in the depths of all of that and things are changing and you didn't quite prepare for this change, you have to begin to consider that there's an acceptance that maybe you're being triggered to use, a surrendering to the process that is being heightened in extremely overwhelming at times states at this moment in time. So making the transition can feel like some days you're super empowered, super liberated by knowing that there's opportunity out there and that anything is possible. And then suddenly at the next, you're thinking, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've become an infant again. I need mama's milk. I need daddy's strong hand. You just crumble again, seemingly into nothingness because you have no idea what is coming. And sometimes that can be the destroyer of health and wealth within the body. So a lot of times recently too, you're probably experiencing a lot of things happening within the system, within your physical vessel, within your mind, the thoughts that come in, how healthy you're feeling. So it's really, really impactful right now to be able to go, okay, if I'm feeling this way, it must mean that I need to do something about it, in the sense that I'm going to, you know, be in control of the things that I can be in control of, which is, let's go for a walk, let's get some fresh air, let's meditate, let's go work out, let's make a healthy meal at home, let's drink a protein shake in between meals, let's not take on any more sugar. You know, you have all of these things that are coming up for you in order for you to really assess what you can change that is in your control for you to be and do better than maybe what you have done in the past, or feel better at least, and continue to reframe the sensation that everything is, doors are closing, things are ending, I'm struggling right now, I can't see past today or tomorrow. Instead of focusing on those things, we're reintegrating the lessons that maybe we have learned in our past to now come back in a refreshed, reused, repurposed state to move forward. So let me talk about now maybe reason 2. Why are these things happening? Like, why are we really being triggered by all this stuff? What is this trigger and why is it a global thing? Well, Michelle says it is necessary, it is change, it is, things are always changing, it freaking sucks, but there's been so much stagnation. Like, I will give a personal story. Back in 2018, I had this same very experience happen to me, where I, for a couple of months, knew that something was off. Like, my job wasn't working for me, and like, obviously some of these things are like happening that are technically in your control and you could make the change ahead of time, but sometimes we just sit in the same place waiting for something to happen so we don't have to be the ones to take control of that thing. You know what I'm talking about. I'm probably talking to you. I know I'm talking to me because I've done that so many times, where something doesn't feel right, which was me in this story in 2018. Something didn't feel right, and it wasn't like a normal, like, because I was unhappy in my job. It was so many things that felt so off-putting to me, like just the way the sunshine looked through the clouds, just the way I drove to work and home, just the way I was connecting with people. Something just felt so untimely, and the reason I say that word in particular is because I'm also alluding to the fact that I think it's a large portion of it is because we are hyper accelerating on a quantum level toward new timelines. So at this point in time, 2018, at this job, didn't like it, didn't like the way life was. Like, I had done so much stuff up to this point in my life that I was like, why am I here? You may be asking yourself, why am I here? Or maybe you did, because if you are watching this, you're a part of the global community right now that has already been moving through massive changes and things have already been happening to you. Sorry, I'm caveating so much, but it's all relevant that when I was feeling these things in 2018, and then again happened in 2020, but when I was feeling these things, I was like, something, like I myself said, probably to many people, but also all the time to myself, because it was something I felt intrinsically. It was innate to me. I knew something was changing. Didn't quite know what, until the week before a major hurricane was supposed to hit Panama City. And it was like all the chimes and bells and rings. I still get chills from it because it blows my mind how on point all of that felt to me. Was like massive change. And get you not, Panama City has luckily been so blessed to have hurricanes just either miss it or dissipate right before it lands, or when it lands gets down to like a category 2 or 1 or less, or it's just a tropical storm and doesn't do any damage, relative damage. And this time, when they said, okay, be prepared, there's a hurricane coming, I was like, it's coming, and it literally is going to change everything. Like it was like clear, like I still get, I got goosebumps on my legs. It was just so clear to me, and I so understood it to be the catalyst to something that was necessary, that so many of the lives that I was around and the experience that I was personally having, that like it was just pulling everything at me that needed to change. And when I got that information that it was supposed to land, I was like, that is it. It clicked, it rang, and guess what? It landed. It was a category, I think 4 or 5, I can't remember. Hurricane Michael, 2018, Panama City, look it up. It destroyed a lot of places. It completely took down so many things, like buildings, trees, roads, like just destroyed it. Mexico Beach got the worst of it. If you want to look up those pictures, that's pretty bad. But the point is that I'm trying to make with all of this is I felt very similarly in 2020. Knew this was going to happen again. Similar experience. I was working a job, something didn't feel right. Honestly thought I was going to get fired. Like I kept asking my team members, they were probably annoyed with me. I was like, does my boss like me? I just don't know. I feel really like something's weird. Like, should I stay? I just don't know. And they're like, no, she loves you. It's great. And then literally like a couple weeks after I was feeling all of this, and like still the prolonging because I'm staying and I don't really know what's happening, but something needs to change. I don't really know. We all know what happened in 2020. The shutdowns happened. And again, I was in this moment. I was like, I knew this was going to happen. Like, what the fuck? Well, guess what? I have had a similar experience, but guess what? I did not want to believe that it was going to be true this year for me. But it was, and it is, and it's happening real time. If you don't already know, am experiencing a breakup with my 6.5-year partner. Now, we are obviously no longer partners at this point, and it has been extremely challenging. So the long caveat story to all of this continues to be like, again, we want to just so badly hyper focus on like, why is this happening? Blah, 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 blah. Well, Patricia or Jeremy, you know why it's happening. And subconsciously, you've been praying for this to happen. And maybe not in this particular way, because I surely didn't want this to happen. This was not my choice. Literally, it was his choice, not my choice. So subconsciously, I knew something had to change. But this time was different because I did not want to accept it. And that is the key right there. That brings us into a space of acceptance for this thing to actually be happening, or necessary, or purposeful. Like, it's not necessarily why it's happening, it's when and because it had to happen specifically. And why I'm saying that is, for all of this, I myself, my personal experience within this time, what I've been feeling come up for me and healing for me has been, I really truly lost my identity to being more of service to my partner, being more of service to everything else besides the things, the passions, the purpose that I was living within myself. And actually this year's, guess what too, I turned 30 years old, and Saturn return really be hitting. That's no joke. That's just no joke. I have had so many deaths this year already, 2025, while also while around my birthday last year, like just so many things, endings and beginnings have just been spiraling. So when we can accept that this is happening because it needed to happen, we don't need to focus on the why. We can just surrender to saying, okay, I do know and understand that where I was at no longer serves the path that I am journeying on, because really what I want is freedom or joy or presence. And what I was getting was self-isolation or regret or restriction or limitedness, all of these things that I never wanted for myself. So I can't be too surprised that what is changing, why it's happening, is happening at this time. Rather, it's a process of re-examining this attachment to why it's happening, because I need to trust that it's happening for my highest and greatest good. I need to trust that. And I have to trust myself, and I have to trust my ex-partner, and I have to trust my community, and I have to trust the path that I'm walking and the expression that is coming out of me so effortlessly lately. I have to trust that, and I'm going to, and you should too. The third and final thing that I will mention, because I have made this longer than I anticipated, but the third and final thing that I will mention is, where is this taking us? What does it mean when all of these things are changing in our global community? What can we do about it? And where is it taking us? So ultimately, when we begin to accept that I can trust this process, you will rapidly move through healing and integration and re-empowering yourself. And this is literally a pinnacle moment in time that if you can do this, you will be on board with millions of people who are experiencing these same exact things that you are right now too. And I want to touch back on the first things that I mentioned earlier in the video about like timeline shifting and quantum healing, quantum jumping rather. They can be somewhat interchanged in this expression experience that I'm talking about right now, regardless. But when we are being divinely led through an experience such as major turning points and transitions and transformations, there is no doubt in my mind that we are all collectively, maybe even for the betterment of Mother Gaia, to shift to a higher timeline, or to at least a more aligned reality. And if you don't believe or resonate with the words that I'm using, just think about a better experience than the one you're having now. And if you can recall many times probably in your past, things that had to end, die, change, or be removed from your life, how impacted you were, and what you are now, who you are now, seeing that had to happen. And this is, I feel like at this point, kind of grade school understanding of, in order to be the best version of myself,
I need to let go of the old things that weigh me down. And in order to shift to a greater perspective or a more compassion-oriented heart space, I need to release and acknowledge that it was maybe my ego or my thought patterns that had kept me safe or limited in such a way that removed me from seeing, feeling, thinking clearly about maybe the next step I was being pushed, triggered, or tapped on the shoulder to change. Like, we have been getting these messages for months now. You and I both, we have been getting these messages for months now that something is transforming, changing, and we're being initiated and required to look at something more deeply that we just weren't maybe ready to look at. So it's leading us into the best versions of ourselves. And ultimately, I don't mean to say that to be like you're not already your best version of yourself, because you are in every single moment, and there is no hierarchy, there is no level, there is no degree. It is stating that within each moment that I breathe life into this world, I am co-collaborating. I am collaborating with God, with the divine, with source, with my future self, to say that I want wonderful things for myself because I deserve it, because I just am deserving of it. It does not matter who I have been in the last 30 seconds, who I've been in the last year, who I've been in the last 20 years. It does not matter. The only thing that matters is right now, how I choose to believe it, how do I choose to believe, and what I choose to do with the information given. And it also is helping you understand that it is an integrative process. It's not a push down all the things that I did not like about myself and then like try and forget about it. It is, I'm integrating this process of understanding that I have compassion for my past self, and I am worthy of better things, good feeling things, things that come to me naturally because I'm aligned to them naturally, just because. And acknowledging that it may take minutes, hours, weeks, months to forgive and integrate the new version of yourself in order to continuously repurpose and re-empower yourself, this energy, this experience of knowing that I'm doing everything I can to be who I am. Not because of some external validation, but because I only have this one life this time. I am choosing to live it in accordance with pleasure, purpose, passion, happiness, fulfillment, and all of the wonderful things, the scopes of things that we get to acknowledge and recognize and perceive within this human experience here on Earth, while I am here, incarnate, in this body, embodied through and through. And it's just shifting. Everything is shifting towards a new belief pattern, a new way of flowing energy through, letting it move and then pass along to wherever it needs to go. Non-attachment, detachment, recognition, transmutation, and alchemy to energize something else or someone else. All of these processes that we are moving through, into, and beyond, of course, will ultimately always be the name of the game, but in more simple, practical, in a more simple, practical reality, it is, we just want to feel love, be loved,
and to love in this lifetime. And the only ways that we can really do it is, of course, we have to start within. So this time is reflecting to us that that is what has been missing. So just acknowledge to yourself that you're doing the best you can with the information given to be the best version of yourself, because you acknowledge that you are great just as you are, and that anything that your hands touch, anything that you decide to choose from here on out moving forward to be the desired pleasure and source of joy and fulfillment is enough. And you are deserving of whatever that experience is, and there is no other judgment, there is no other external anything for you to place your attention on other than the expression that is coming out of you in any given moment at any point in day, and that is okay. So that is all I have for all of us today. I hope that you have enjoyed this little channel chat and conversation, because I truly have. I'm still getting goosebumps, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, namaste.